foot techniques. Right, so in this section we're going to be looking at our different types of foot bass drum techniques and hi-hat foot techniques. So there are kind of three main ones, and they vary in difficulty. So we're going to look at the easiest one to begin with on the bass drum. So this is burying the beater technique, basically, where what we're doing here, if you excuse the crocs, is we're lifting up the heel, back of the foot. Basically, before we look at this, positioning on the pedal, we want to be not so far up the pedal that we're hitting the chain, but kind of nicely positioned on the pedal so the back of the foot is kind of resting near the back onto that back plate. So the main bit of the pedal that's doing the work here is this area here. Okay. So with the burying the beater or heel up technique, we're basically, our resting position is with the heel up and the beater against the head. So when we're not playing, don't necessarily need to be lifting the leg up like that the whole time, but when we're not playing, we're kind of resting the beater against the head. And then all we're doing here is we're lifting the whole leg from your kind of hip, and using just this part of your foot, just the front part of the foot. That's the only bit that is actually touching the pedal. So kind of from your toes to the mid of the foot, and we're just burying the beater. It's staying on the head. Again, so we're kind of lifting the whole foot, but always resting position is the beater against the head. Okay? So that's kind of the easiest technique, possibly because that's the technique that I use mostly. However, saying that, in recent years, after studying with Dave Illich, who, if you really want to get into a lot more detail with these different bass drum techniques and a whole load of other techniques, I'd strongly suggest you checking out his course, because he has some really amazing stuff on there. But this next technique, which is the beater coming off the head, is what I've learned from him and his technique for doing that. So what you gain with beater off the head is obviously you get more of a tone out of the bass drum. Now what I've said about hitting the drums and not pushing into them and leaving your sticks on the drums, because it kind of kills the tone, the sound of the drums. So essentially with burying the beater, that's kind of what you're doing. You're killing the tone of the bass drum. Now that a lot of the time that's fine with like rock and pop and stuff, because we just want that big fat bass drum and we don't want it to last a long time. We just want a killer thump. So with the beater coming off the head, you're actually getting more tone from the drums, and you're actually getting a lot more power, and you're using much less stress on your leg, because burying the beater one, you're basically always stressing this part of your leg. But with the beater off the head, you can see straight away with my resting foot, that's where we're resting. My leg is just like normal. It's just, if I was just have my foot on the ground, how I'd be resting. So the best way to think about this is directly from Dave Illich, is you want a completely flat foot, as though you had a beer can on the ground and you were just crushing it. The reason we want to keep a real flat foot, The reason being is because if you look at the way that a pedal's set up, it's angled up, obviously. So if we're coming down on this pedal completely flat and then resting. So again, the front of the foot is staying on the pedal. We're not lifting, we're avoiding lifting, like with the burying the beater one, we're lifting from the back of the foot. But with this beater off the head, we're lifting the whole leg from the hip. We're not lifting the back of the foot first and then the leg down. It's like a whole leg movement. Okay? So what you naturally get from the design of a pedal by doing that is the beater not being buried. See that? How it's just naturally hitting and coming off. And it's crazy how little movement you need to actually do because, again, of the design of the pedal. Really, with this burying the beater technique, you're kind of not really working with the design of a pedal because you're kind of working against the angle of it because you're always trying to get into it like this. But with a flat foot, see the resting position, it's already right. And again, remember, it's just that real slight lift of the whole foot. And obviously, because of the angle, if you're lifting the whole foot, the front bit is always going to be staying on. So the only part that's coming off the pedal is actually just the back of the foot, just very lightly. And that gives you the off the beater technique, which actually means you can create so much more bass drum parts, being able to do a lot more and actually have a lot more power because the whole leg is going into it rather than just kind of the front of the leg here with the burying. The other technique is the heel down technique, where I really don't use this technique at all, so I'm probably not the best person to be portraying this, but I'm just showing you it as an option. A lot of people do kind of start playing like this because they kind of think that's how you play. I mean, a lot of people do get power out of it, but it's very much coming off the beater again. But I feel like if power is kind of what you're going for, this probably isn't the most powerful bass drum technique. But again, I'm not that experienced with this because I never use it. That is a lie, actually. If I need to play, if I'm playing something very, very quiet, I will often use this technique because you can play very, very quietly. Yeah, so there is an application for it, and I do actually use it, thinking about it, which is quite interesting. You know, I'm learning stuff here as well. Okay, so yeah, so those are the three main bass drum techniques that I use. There are other ways. What I would say though is the second technique, the beater off the head one, this one. This needs to be practiced in isolation for quite a while. I would consider just practicing doing this, flat foot, trying to crush the can, and then trying to then position yourself on the pedal and just trying very, very slowly to get this technique going. Just single hits every so often, just really paying attention that you're not lifting the back of the foot, it's coming from the hip, from the top of the hip. Okay, this is a technique that I've only started practicing in the last 5 years, I've always buried the beater. So for me, it's still quite a new technique, and it's only slowly coming into my playing. It takes a long, long time. Maybe because I was so programmed with the burying, I've now changed. It's kind of 50-50. I switch between the two. So that technique does take a bit more practice. So just being aware of the different options. Now over to the left foot, the hi-hat foot. Again, you can have the same kind of techniques happening with where you position your foot. To begin with the hi-hat, when we're doing basic grooves, which we're going to get into soon, we're just trying to keep the hi-hat closed. So we're just putting a nice, we want to avoid putting loads of pressure on it so that we're kind of off balance. This is the real main thing with pedals. You want to make sure that whenever you're playing one, you're not going off balance to either side. This does take a little bit of time to kind of get your balance, because you're essentially just kind of pivoting on your seat and using both feet. But to begin with, the left foot, we're just trying to keep a nice bit of weight on it so that it's got a nice closed sound. Now when we want to open the hi-hat, I generally keep the back of my foot on the hi-hat and just lift. So keep the heel on the back of the pedal and just lift slightly. So that you can create these open sections. That's quite advanced stuff. We'll get into open and closed hi-hat sections. But essentially, if you're playing the hi-hat as a hi-hat foot, you can have the same technique, which is the burying, coming off the head technique, which is you using the whole leg and flat, keeping the front of the foot on it. Again, something that I am still trying to encompass, the same technique from the right foot into the left foot. But a lot of the time, I'll be heel up on that. I'll be heel up on that hi-hat. So when I need to play it, it will be just like the whole leg coming off it. Sorry, the whole heel off it. I'm trying to get it so that it's more, just less of the whole foot coming off, but that's essentially your positions. So little opens here if you want an actual big hi-hat foot like this. That's a little splash. But yeah, but to begin with the hi-hat foot, we're just trying to keep it closed, mostly, just that bit of weight on it. But mostly you can equate what you do on your right foot to your left foot. The left foot does often get left behind, so thinking about what you're doing with the left foot early on is a really good practice.